Alright, for today's video we are talking about exponential transformations, which are very similar to some of the other ones you have seen. As you can tell, on this one it's entry 27. Yours may be different, just depends on when it is you're actually watching this and when we are in the year. The standard we are talking about today is MM3A2EF, which means in particular we're talking about exponential transformations, how the equation affects the graph. Now, as you can see, we have this generic formula right here. Now, this can be any number. It can change. And each one of these signs and letters in here do mean something different, particularly when we're talking about the equation. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to play our recording. So here's our first thing. This right here, this number is going to change. It just tells us that we're dealing with an exponential function, so we know kind of what type of graph we're looking at. So now the first one we have is this little negative in the front. Now we're used to seeing that little negative. It's just going to tell us to reflect x, or in other words, we're going to flip our graph upside down. The next thing we generally think about is this a. I don't know where they came up with the letter a. It's just the one they use. So it has two choices. It can either be a whole number or it can be a fraction. Now each one's going to tell us different things to do with our graph. So the whole number is going to tell us we're going to take it and we're going to stretch it, which means it's going to climb really quick. If it's a fraction, it's going to shrink, which means it's not going to climb as fast. The next thing is we have this little negative right here. Now, if a negative in the front means reflect x, a negative right here is going to tell us to reflect y. The next thing we have here is this minus h. Sometimes you see it as plus, sometimes you see it as minus. So today we're talking about it as a minus. And it's got two choices. It can either be a positive number right there, or it can be a negative number right there. Now, because we want to find out when x is going to be 0, that means this is essentially going to change signs. So you would actually go the other way. So positive, you would think it would go right, but it's going to psych you out, and it's going to go left instead. Same thing happens with the negative. You think left, but it's going to go right. Our one on the end here, our k. At this point, it's done trying to psych us out, trying to make us think too much. It's going to tell us straight up what's going on. So it's either going to be a positive number or a negative number. If it is a positive number, we're going to move it up. If it's a negative number, we're going to move it down. So at this point, we have gone through our transformation thing. You might want to pause the video, give these 4 problems a shot before the answers start. Okay, at this point, the first question right here has 2 things going on. The plus 3 tells us we are going left. The minus 5 tells us we are going down. And since this is a 2, it tells us it's going to be an exponential growth function. Number 2, we have this 2 in the front here, which tells us it's going to be a stretch. The 1/3 tells us it's going to be an exponential decay function. The negative tells us it's going to reflect over the y-axis, and the plus 4 tells us the graph is going to move up 4 units. Number 3, we have the 1/3 again, which tells us it's going to be an exponential decay. The negative in front of x tells us we're going to reflect y, and our plus 7 on the end tells us it's going to move up 7 units. Our last one has several transformations going on. We have the negative in front, which means it reflects x. The 2/7 is a fraction, so it is going to shrink. Our 4 here tells us it's going to be an exponential growth function. Our minus 5 tells us it's going to move to the right 5 units, and our minus 7 tells us it's going to move down 7 units.